Good evening and welcome to Savage Universe. I am JM and we're here talking about Enemies Unleashed with Brandon and Ross of Star Anvil Studios. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, always a pleasure. I was unable to make the last one, so we were talking about maybe doing a follow-up. I jumped on it because I enjoy talking with both of you guys.
Awesome.
Well, that's because we pay you to say that.
That is not true. Peg pays me to say it.
My wife said I needed friends. I'm sure she talked to you. No, I'm just kidding.
That's yeah.
Wow.
No, the retainer was very generous. So let's talk about Enemies Unleashed. You've got just over a week left in this Kickstarter. This is a supplement for Savage Worlds, specifically Savage World Supers, and this feels to me like a very classic comic book story seed. So Ross, I know this was kind of your brainchild. You want to talk us through what the idea behind Enemies Unleashed is?
Well, sure. I did a lot of superhero stuff back in the day. I played a lot of superhero games. And back then, my game of choice was Champions. And Champions had numerous bad guy books that gave me all these great ideas. And all their bad guy books were called Enemies or Enemies this or Enemies that, And I was like, man, I'd love to do like a homage to something like that. I talked to Brandon, and I got some of my friends together, including some guys who had written superhero stuff in the past. And we got this little dream team together, and we decided to make this a villain book, a super villain book. But we put a couple of fun little spins on it that make it more than just a collection of bad guy stats. And I think it's a pretty great little book.
So the hook is, as I understand it, it's a super prison escape, correct?
Right. Yeah. There's a narrative thread that connects all the supervillains, which is they're all part of a jailbreak from this supervillain prison. And the idea is that as a game master, you can put the prison and the prison break and the villains in your game without needing anything else. You can just be like, oop, plop, here they are. And each supervillain then has a little section about what they did during the breakout, or even if in some cases they weren't even clear it was happening until it happened. But they also have a big write-up on who they are and what their powers are like and how they fight and whether or not they can be redeemed, because some villains
I love that. So why did you want to include a redemption clause for some of these supervillains?
Honestly, it was not my idea. This was my friend Dave Mattingly was like, hey, it'd be cool as if, I would always like to know if a villain is redeemable or not, because some people like to play characters that are very moral. Superheroes generally is a very idealistic, genre. And, I thought that idea was really cool. I liked the thrust of it. And I was like, you know what, let's do that. Let's add a little extra and say, some of these villains can be redeemed and possibly even become heroes themselves.
This reminds me, a lot of, Gramercy Island for Heroes Unlimited was one of my favorite Heroes Unlimited books. You've got, New Avengers by Brian Michael Bendis. The first arc is called Breakout. There's a breakout on the raft, and one of the people who breaks out is the Sentry. And then you have this redemption arc for bringing the Sentry into the New Avengers. Like this is classic, great superhero storytelling right here.
Thank you. And it's funny you should mention Gramercy Island, because the author of Gramercy Island is Bill Coffin.
Yeah, I saw his name on this.
He created some villains for this book. He's one of the guys I reached out to specifically.
Man, Bill Coffin's work at Palladium was, there when he was doing things like Western Empire and Gramercy Island, those were some of my favorite second wave Palladium books. So it's great to see him on a project like this.
So one thing I'd like to point out about the redemption arc, a lot of times the really cool thing about superheroes is you can literally just go, bad guys doing X and the heroes can react and stop it. That's the very classic reactive heroes thing. and that's an easy session to set up. Hey guys, I have much to do tonight. Let's grab these villains. Let's make some heroes.
Yep.
Let's just smash some bad guys. But if you're going to keep playing the campaign and these bad guys keep showing up, knowing if they can be redeemed or not helps the campaign have more playability, because maybe the heroes find the bad guy, and the GM, since they know they're redeemable, doesn't play them quite so awful.
Yeah.
So that the heroes can, like, maybe they see something in the redeem, and now the heroes can have it makes it more of a campaign oriented play versus the constant one-off beat up the bad guy, mission done.
Yeah.
And that will give you some more replayabilities with these villains versus I beat them up once. Why do I just want to beat them up again? Well, if you have to figure out a way to help them on that redemption arc or maybe save them in some way, your players have to be more invested in their world and the characters. It's going to make it more of a real world for your characters to play in, I think. And I think that's why Ross's friends came up with that idea, but I think it was really great that Ross took it, ran with it, put it in here and said, yeah, that's a good idea, because this makes it more of a playable long-term set of villains versus just a bad guy who you have to like beat up every time.
Well, I mean, and that's sort of, the core of the Pinnacle Necessary Evil arc, right? That like you are the villains, but maybe you are redeemable, or I think it's Irredeemable and Incorruptible, both by Mark Millar or Mark Waid, one of the Marky Marks who write comics.
I read both of those.
Right? Yeah. What if Superman goes bad? Well, then his villain goes, well, I'm the only guy who's ever been able to stand up to him. I guess I'm a hero now. And you're like, I really think that was a much better arc. Although the ending of the first one was just perfect. Just perfect. So it's not just the PDF. And again, you guys have already funded. So this is definitely going to happen. You guys have an action deck coming together. And one of the things I always love about Star Anvil Studio projects is how great the art is, not just for the book itself, but I have sitting around here, right here, I have a sneaky. I got a Saints and Sinners action deck sitting right here. I'm not going to show off any of that art, but
not right now. That's not.
Brandon, you were the art director, and tell us about the action deck.
Well,
it is objectively good, John.
Thank you. So the main thing with the art was trying to capture each character being unique and interesting. And we make an action deck. I really like putting the characters in the action deck because, or the most notable things, and characters are the easiest to put in an action deck that kind of like people can associate with it. We try to make it make sense. Like in the very top left corner, you see Queenie, who's all about wealth and money. You notice she's the Queen of Diamonds.
Yeah.
You notice the Queen of Hearts is the one who has all the animals around her.
Yeah.
Why to fit it? The kings are the more guys who are more the types who are probably leaders of a gang or a group. Not always, but generally speaking, if we can match those things up, we do. It's just to be thematic, but it's just fun to see the art when you play because you get to see the characters and stuff like that. And especially the Joker in this one, we just went with Hallow Jack because he's just pure evil. So he's just the Joker across the board because he's probably one of the most powerful characters in a sense.
That's true.
Speaking of your action decks, Billy Berserker said he just got his Secret World decks in.
Woo. Yeah, he got all the faction ones. Yeah, he's going to use those for bennies in his game. That way, depending on which faction you're playing, he's just going to hand the cards out like bennies.
Oh, that's
because
brilliant.
They got their faction symbol out, which I thought was a cool idea.
Brilliant.
So the Queen of Hearts is actually very thematic because that's Menagerie, and she's technically like a really good-hearted character. She's basically like what if Poison Ivy, but the animal kingdom instead of plants.
Oh, nice.
She can control animals and always seeks to like end irresponsible experimentation on animals and free animals from labs and just stop the destruction of their homes and things like that. She's an activist who's also a villain. So the Queen of Hearts really works for her, I think.
Yeah. Well, part of the fun of having you guys on here is getting to show off some of the art. And I realize this is a 65-page PDF. So we're not going to show off a ton of art because
depends on if we unlock any more stretch goals. But
that's true.
We'll talk about stretch goals here in a second, but tell me about this awesome art.
So This guy right here is Clockwork Man. And Clockwork Man is a creation of Scott Heine, who is an old school Champions writer for back in the day that I kind of brought out of retirement to work on this. And Scott made some of the most fun characters. And Clockwork Man is definitely the type of villain that your players are going to, they're going to kind of love to hate him a little bit, because he is the most arrogant jerk, little brilliant bastard you probably have ever encountered. Clockwork Man, the character Ralph Panch, he's actually the kid with the lollipop down there. But the mech that he operates is called Clockwork Man, and he uses this to carry out all of his most juvenile desires. If he could, if your characters are suddenly alerted that a supermodel has been kidnapped off the runway, it's probably Ralph Panch. If your heroes get told that someone is disrupting the Super Bowl halftime show because they don't like the product, it might be Ralph Panch. He is the guy that just does the most crazy teenage nightmare type stuff that you can imagine. But his battle suit is very powerful because he's a very, very smart kid. And him and his suit were actually part of the breakout.
That's awesome. That is definitely a character that my group would roll their eyes and groan.
Yes.
Every time he showed back up, and then be like, all right, well, let's go take care of Clockwork Man again. When are we going to hit the big leagues? So is this is Menagerie based off your description, I'm assuming?
Yes,
that's correct. Yep.
Oh, it's awesome.
That guy is Oathmaster. That's one of the characters I created.
Very cool.
Oathmaster is the mastermind behind the breakout. He is he was just a painter who was kind of, a little bit nebbish, just kind of going through his life as a punching bag. And one night after somebody stole all his art from a gallery, he just, in a fit of rage, he was painting all of his emotions onto the canvas. And the picture that he painted spoke back to him and was like, would you like to make sure that everyone makes sure to keep their promises, because this is what the problem, that the painter was having. He's like, yes, I'll do anything. And the pact was made, and Oathmaster emerged into the world. Oathmaster is a very powerful master villain. And one of his most dangerous or threatening abilities is he can enforce a promise. If you swear an oath to Oathmaster, if you break it, you will suffer badly or die, depending on your level of resilience. Like a super villain might just like be in serious pain, but a normal person would just keel over. So he has a massive criminal organization under his control because he can enforce those promises of loyalty.
Yeah, they're dying to follow him.
That's right. That's fantastic. I won't get into that. Buddy has a fantasy city in one of his campaigns that works very similarly, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I love. No, you got to be real careful about what you say around, these people or Oathmaster, because he can enforce it. And Faust would be proud. Oh yeah, sure, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure people keep their promises. Well, all right. I love this piece of art.
Yes. Red Dragon. Bill Keys. He's a guy who's been on a lot of Pinnacle products, or Savage Worlds related projects. Bill came up with this guy, and Red Dragon is actually a for real fantasy Red Dragon that entered the comic book world and got stuck there and said, well, I guess I'm a crime lord now.
Like you do.
Well,
right?
He wants his hoard of wealth. So he is in his human form, which you see here and also on the cover of the book. He is kind of a Arabian mob boss, but he can assume his true form to surprise and give your players one hell of a fight.
So what tier did you build these villains I assume you use the superpower companion. Like, are we talking like these are like street level villains, or these
Not all. It runs the
or
gamut.
is there a scale?
There's a scale. Some
Okay.
of them are low are lower power. Oathmaster and Red Dragon are both on the higher end. Menagerie is on the lower end. Clockwork Man's on the lower end.
Okay.
But yeah, this guy. Oh, there's a Trapdoor.
Trapmaster.
Trapdoor.
Oh, Trapdoor. I was thinking.
Yeah. Trapdoor is what happens when you have a genius level intellect and constantly get annoyed that superheroes get all depressed.
Okay.
So Trapdoor has decided to humble superheroes by he's kind of like if you took Riddler and crossed him with Arcade.
Yeah. No.
He is a guy who likes to humble superheroes with his superior intellect, and he does it through creating the most deadly and dastardly traps and just in all kinds of ways to mess with your heroes.
Arcade. I'm actually reading through the Claremont era X-Men, and I'm like, man, my first introduction to Arcade was this really bad X-Men video game that came out on the PC, and like it had to be the late 80s, early 90s, and Arcade was the main villain. I'm like, who is this guy? And like my hate for him in that video game kind of made him a character that I know he's not a popular X-Men villain, but that's awesome. I love puzzle bosses like that, and it feels like Trapdoor is definitely going to be the spider at the center of the web.
Exactly. He's moderately powerful, but his real challenge comes from his deadly traps. Pangia. This is one of Bill Coffin's. Pangia is basically a version of Magneto. Like she's a mutant who was born with her abilities, and the world sort of hates and fears her because she's so strong. Like she actually accidentally killed her family when her powers manifested for the first time. She has control over earth and lava and magma and things like nature.
Okay.
And she actually is a major part of the breakout because she caused this massive earthquake that broke down a lot of the walls and physical constraints. But like Magneto, she's at her core, what she really wants to do is help her own kind and not be seen as a terrible person. So she's one of those that is redeemable, although she is definitely on the higher end of the power scale.
Awesome. Now this was our Joker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hallow Jack, Spirit of Fear. He is a almost cosmic type entity. He's a being that lives like, what if Dream from the Sandman was a bad guy?
Was actually Nightmare.
Yeah, he is this guy. That is him. He is a creature of nightmares. He is fear incarnate, and he's a great thing to throw at your heroes because he is kind of like Freddy Krueger in that he's in the dream dimension. He goes into your dreams and messes around with your dreams, but he's rarely ever confronted outside of the nightmare realm, if you will.
Yeah, awesome. I got to tell you, I love all of these touchstones and twists that you're putting on, right? Because some people will be like, "Oh, there's nothing new to do in superheroes." That's not true. You just have to be clever and kind of recapitulate or reimagine. And these are great new villains. Makes me want to run a superhero campaign like right now.
Thank you.
Now go ahead. Oh, I was going to say we got 2 more pieces, but these are actually spreads from the actual PDF. And as always, like the quality coming out of Star Anvil Studios is just spectacular.
The Packrats, one of my favorites. This is another one of Scott Heinen's characters, and he is a nuisance level villain. He is definitely the guy you encounter on your way to another bank robbery. Like he's
Kite
not the
Man.
one.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Kite Man. Yeah. So Horace Tubbs was just kind of a normal schlubby guy, but he encountered the aftermath of a superhero fight and found some really cool stuff lying around. And he was like, I bet I could find more of this stuff. And so he just keeps going around to all the superhero battle scenes and picks up gear that's left behind, like little jet boots or his little glue gun or his body armor. And after a while, he's like, I'm going to be my own supervillain. I'm going to be the Packrat. And he's just he's really more for comedic value than anything else, but he's really just a fun little villain to throw in. If you don't have anything to do between point A and point B of where the player characters are going, they can run into Packrat causing some kind of havoc.
Some kind of nuisance level event.
You can see on this character sheet, actually, you can see the adventure seeds. There's like 4 different ways you can encounter him.
I think it's also interesting. Someone in our Discord chat pointed out that if you wanted to, he's easy to scale up because you have the perfect excuse that he picked up some better gear. And if the heroes strip it out from him, he'll pick up new gear. So you would have the perfect justification for every time they run into this guy, he's not the same.
Yeah.
Like, here's the gear he had this time. Hey, but this time he picked up the ray gun of whatever, and the force field of so and so, and he's completely different. Also, little known fact, I was the body model for this character.
Cryptwright says I have the same outfit.
That's right. I was just gonna say that.
Some of my shirts look like that when I go to the gym, for sure. They roll up.
This character, Max Wreckage, he's a lot of fun. I want to point out, there is a whole other page that we're not showing, but that is the background, like the history and everything.
Right.
I don't want anybody to feel like all of these characters are just start with the powers. Like there is background. So Max he's an interesting fellow. He is kind of like the Wrecker from Marvel mixed with Iron Man. He's got a suit of power armor that's basically fused to his body. And he's kind of forced into a life of crime. Like, you can see the redeemable section says he's not really redeemable because he feels like this is it. Like he's a dead ender, right? But he's doing it to save his family. Like the money he gets for all the crimes he pulls goes to his family. So he's got some sympathy there, even though he is an irredeemable villain. He's another one of those mid-level power villains you can throw as a B plot or as a side quest, for a main mission. But he's a fun little guy. Jared Twing came up with this guy.
Very cool.
He's power level 4, so he's no pushover either.
No slouch.
He's got a gang called the Wrecking Balls. That is his little gang that goes along with him.
So many jokes.
I know. I know.
So many.
I'm gonna keep it above board today.
That's because, damn it, we're professionals.
That's what we tell people.
100%.
Right.
100%.
So you said that as it kind of expands out, you plan on adding more material to the. I'm sorry, John Doom is being John Doom, and I'm going to give. I know you're my GM tomorrow night, but I'm going to give you a penny for that one because.
Nice.
Shame on you, John Doom. Shame on you.
That was gold. That was gold, John Doom. So so you're at just over 2,000. Next stretch goal's at 3,000. What unlocks then?
At 3,000, we add stats for the prison guards, I believe.
Okay.
Let's see here. Yep. 3,000 is entries and stats for the Wildstone Bay prison guards get added to the book.
And you've got add-ons that are using the art, right? We've got the action deck, but you also have VTT tokens and figure flats.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. The figure flats are with the sense that you could print them at home if you're playing a live game.
Right.
The VT tokens were just easy. If you're running this in the game, you could just drop the tokens in there, whatever game you're running. And since these were built the Superpowers Companion, it wouldn't be that hard to add them to your game, whatever. But yeah.
Very cool. Well, there's 8 days left in this. It's not there's not a particularly high bar to entry for this product. It's you've got the PDF at
20
You've got the PDF at $20. You've got the super villain that includes the PDF, the action deck, and all of the add-ons. and then you have the mastermind that includes the POD. The POD of the action deck, and you get a special 1 hour consultation with Ross. And let me tell you, having worked with Ross on several projects, that's worth its weight in gold.
Well, I don't know about gold, probably silver. No, honestly, there's a reason I brought him as my partner, right?
Yeah.
He's got what 20 plus years. He's getting kind of gray there, so maybe 25 years. In the industry, he knows a lot about writing, bringing a project to completion. He's worked on so many great projects, including Star Wars. What was it, Edge of Empire?
Yeah, a whole bunch of Savage Worlds products, including
Rifts and
Savage Rifts and Last Parsec and Lankmar and Weird War 1 and
Accursed.
and
Don't
Accursed.
forget Accursed.
Cursed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so having him as someone you can ask questions for a period of time, if you're really wanting to create stuff, that's not a bad deal. If you really want to say, because then he has to show up because you paid him.
That's right.
Right.
It's a requirement. But yeah, if the basic entry is $20 and then $30 if you want the cool add-ons. So those are, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty good price.
It's a great deal. And again, this is a wonderful supplement if you are running a Savage World Supers game, whether you are, running a Necessary Evil or your own thing. If you're using the Superpowers companion, this is 65 pages of, hey, here's a ton of plot and a ton of story. You get a bunch of adventure hooks. You get interesting villains with interesting backgrounds and possible redemption arcs. That's a campaign in and of itself. Like, you don't necessarily need a plot point campaign because this is your plot point campaign.
Literally, your campaign could be trying to capture all these villains and put them back in or redeem them.
Yeah.
And
Would you say you've got to catch them all?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to poke you for saying that, man. But,
Ouch. Wow.
Best I could come up with. Yeah, I got dad jokes all day long.
That's right. So I'm putting the link back in here. And I mean, here's the other thing. This is right. It is a GM sort of focused product. Mm-hmm. However, I can tell you, as a GM, player comes to me and says, "Hey, I backed this Kickstarter for you. Here's a superhero breakout. I'm going to run next. A freaking superhero breakout.
Yeah,
collect them all. Like, players, do not underestimate the time and effort your GMs are putting into games and how far even just little things like, hey, I backed this for you, goes.
What you could do, a little bit flipped on its head though, too, on occasion, is you could take villains of similar power. The GM could create heroes, and the whole game that night could be, you're the villains, you have to get from here to here to win is to escape, while the heroes are trying to stop you.
Oh yeah.
So, the GM is not, the GM runs the environment. So the environment doesn't have to be heroes. You're playing the heroes. The environment could be, the heroes are trying to put you back in jail. Pick one of these cool villains. We're playing power level 1. We're playing power level 2 or 3. You can pick whatever, pick your characters. And, that would be an interesting one night session to run that. Take the pre-generated heroes. The GM can run those. You've already got them from Superpowers Companion.
Yeah.
Just pick a villain and play.
Well, you also bring up an interesting point because, one of the things about the Superheroes Companion is that, I mean, it really is, of all the companions that we have out right now, one of the most, and I mean this in a good way, fiddly, right? like a good superpower set should be. Like, hey, how do if I want to build X power, there's probably 2 or 3 ways to actually build X power. This is hey, we professionally put together these villain sets, and you can see how different minds built powers for their supers game.
If I may, I think one of the things this product could be very useful for is if you're looking for a concept for Necessary Evil, and you're not sure what to play, but you want to play a villain that is now the protagonist of Necessary Evil. This would be a thing to pick up and maybe browse through and say, okay, here's some ideas that might spark something for me.
Yeah. Yep.
So lots of different ways it could be used. It just depends on which way you want to flip that switch and which way you want to use it. it's a great resource, and it gives you a lot of flexibility in telling a story quickly, mostly from heroes stopping villains, but you can flip that around and use it the other way as well.
Well, I mean, I know they're longer than a single sheet, but this is essentially a bunch of reoccurring one sheet adventures for your superhero game, right?
Yeah,
you could look at it that way, because they do all have adventure seeds, and they all have pretty detailed info about who they are, what they want.
Let's be honest, how many times has Magneto died, or any number of supervillains? They will be back.
How many backstories does Wolverine have? I don't know.
That's right.
Though the way you got it as a GM, you got to get used to saying nobody could have survived that.
That's right.
Watch all your players roll their eyes.
Yeah, sure.
No body, but he has no body because you see no body. So
that's right. No body, no crime. Wait, no, that's not it.
Reminds me of how Lady Salvo died in your Torg Eternity game.
Oh my gosh.
There was no body left behind.
That was an epic.
Martyr card. Boom.
That one card sold me on Torg, because I always run games where I'm like, if you're willing to sacrifice your life for something, I'm willing to break every rule in this book to make something awesome happen. And Torg's like, yeah, no, we're totally making that a mechanic. All right. You had me at martyr.
Seems fair.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to having you on the show many more times in the future. I always love hanging out and chatting with you. I always love being able to show off awesome art. I always love John Doom's
commentary
testicle puns. Yeah.
How he testifies for us.
That's right.
We would love to come back. We've got some stuff cooking up for later in the year that I think people will be really excited about. So
I'm very excited about a lot of the things. I got a little bit of a preview of what's behind the screen at Star Anvil Studios. So we will be back next week at our normal time on Thursday, and I'm currently just stalling to see who's on my schedule for next week. We're talking with the guys from the Robotech Kickstarter that just ended. Nice. They have a late pledge. We're going to be talking about Robotech. One of, it seems to all come back to Palladium. One of my loves that I was introduced to because of little Robotech, like really short role-playing game that just was like, what is this?
I love Robotech, so I'm excited to see that.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Until next time, go out there and play some Savage Worlds. Go check out the Enemies Unleashed Kickstarter. Got the link in the chats on the screen. And until next time, may all of your dice ace. Have a good one, everybody.
Whoa, that's terrible for the GM.